Some women felt like a question. Sloane Whitaker felt like the answer Margot kept giving, before she remembered the question had changed. Morning came softly over Boston. Not beautifully, not dramatically. Just pale light slipping between the curtains in Margot's bedroom, turning the walls a cool gray and catching on the rim of the water glass beside her bed. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving the city washed clean and quieter than usual. Tires hissed over damp streets below. Somewhere, a truck backed up with 3 short beeps. Pipes clicked inside the old building as heat moved through them. Margot woke before her alarm. For several seconds, she did not move. Her body still carried the gala in small, specific aches. Feet tired from heels. Shoulders tight from holding 100 details at once. The faint soreness behind her eyes that always came after too much candlelight, too many voices, too much smiling at exactly the right angle. Then she remembered the balcony. Not the whole evening. Not the speeches. Not Henry's panic or Nora's face or the auction numbers. The balcony. Cold mist against her bare arms. Celeste Rowan's hand at her waist. A kiss that had not rushed her. Margot opened her eyes. "Oh, for God's sake," she said to the ceiling. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She turned her head. "Sloane, you disappeared last night." Margot stared at the message. No good morning. No how did the rest of the gala go. Just the accusation, dressed as an observation. Another message appeared before she touched the phone. "Sloane, I had to behave in public for hours. I expect sympathy." Margot exhaled through her nose. Then, against her better judgment, she smiled. That was Sloane's particular talent. She could step into the morning after an emotionally confusing night and still sound like trouble leaning on a doorframe. Margot picked up the phone. "You survived." "Barely." "Tragic." "You could make it up to me." Margot put the phone face down on the bed. "No. Not today." She sat up, pushed her hair back, and looked around the room. Her apartment occupied the top floor of a brownstone in the South End, not enormous, but full of the kind of order Margot needed after other people's chaos. Cream walls. Dark wood floors. Framed black and white photographs. A linen chair by the window. A narrow writing desk that looked decorative until one opened the drawer and found contracts, seating maps, emergency timelines, invoices, and 3 different types of scissors. Her daughter called the apartment aggressively calm. Margot had taken that as a compliment. She got out of bed, showered, and dressed in soft black trousers and an oatmeal cashmere sweater. No makeup except moisturizer and a little lip balm. Hair twisted loosely at the back of her head. Bare feet against the kitchen floor. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and the white roses she had brought home from an event 2 days earlier. One bloom had started to brown at the edge. Margot filled the kettle, spooned coffee into the French press, and stood still while the water heated. On the kitchen counter, beside her keys, was Celeste's card. She had taken it out of the hidden pocket of her gown at 1:30 in the morning and placed it there before going to bed. Not in a drawer. Not in her wallet. On the counter. A simple cream card. Celeste Rowan. Rowan Restoration. Architecture and Historic Interiors. Number. Email. Address. No flourish. No social media handle. No glossy branding. Just the clean confidence of a woman who did not need to make the paper shout. Margot touched one corner of it with her fingertip. Then the kettle clicked off and saved her from herself. She made coffee. Answered 3 work emails. Sent Nora a bonus for the night before and received 6 heart emojis plus 1 message that said, "I saw nothing," which meant, unfortunately, Nora had seen everything. Margot ignored that too. At 10 her daughter called. Margot answered on speaker while slicing an apple over the sink. "Hi, Mom. Do you have clean towels?" A groan. "Why is that your first question?" "Because I know you. I have 1 clean towel." That is not a system. It's a college system. It's mildew with confidence. Her daughter laughed, and Margot felt the small, familiar warmth of it settle in her chest. They talked for 12 minutes. Classes. A professor who spoke like every sentence had footnotes. a roommate who had decided to become a ceramicist after one elective. The tragedy of dining hall soup. Margot leaned against the counter and listened. Not solving. Not correcting, except about the towel situation. Just listening. When the call ended, the apartment felt quieter. Not empty. Just quiet in a way that knew exactly where to press. Margot picked up Celeste's card again. Her phone buzzed. Sloane, are you home? Margot looked at the message. Then another, don't lie. You answer differently when you're home. Margot should have found that irritating. She did. She also felt the familiar pull of being known in useless, intimate ways. I'm home. Good. That was it. No explanation. No plan. Margot set the phone down. 3 minutes later, the intercom buzzed. She closed her eyes. Absolutely not, she murmured. The intercom buzzed again. Margot pressed the button. Yes. Sloane's voice came through, warm and amused. I brought coffee. I have coffee. I brought better coffee. That is impossible. Let me up and we'll find out. Margot looked at the ceiling for patience. It did not send any. Sloane. Margot. I'm working. On a Sunday morning? Yes. You're lying. I'm answering emails. That is not working. That is punishing yourself with Wi-Fi. Margot hated that she laughed. A small sound, but still. There was a pause on the intercom. Then Sloane said, softer, let me see you. The air changed. Not much. Enough. Margot looked toward the counter, where Celeste's card lay near her coffee cup. Then at the door. She pressed the buzzer. The elevator in Margot's building was old enough to make every arrival feel theatrical. It groaned upward behind the walls, shuddered once at the 4th floor, then settled. Margot opened her apartment door before Sloane knocked. Sloane stood in the hallway wearing a black coat, dark jeans, and a gray sweater that looked expensive without admitting it. Her hair was loose, softer than the night before. She held 2 coffees in one hand and a paper bag in the other. For a second, neither of them spoke. Sloane looked at Margot's sweater, her bare feet, the undone hair. Her expression changed, enough that Margot felt seen in a way she had not prepared for. You look different in daylight, Sloane said. Margot leaned against the doorframe. Is that a complaint? No. Sloane's gaze moved over her face. No, she repeated, quieter. Not a complaint. Margot's fingers tightened on the edge of the door. This was why she let Sloane upstairs. Not the coffee. Not the clever texts. This. The moment when Sloane stopped performing and the wanting came through clean, direct, almost startling. As if Margot had opened a door and found heat waiting in the hall. You're standing in my hallway, Margot said. I noticed. And I'm hoping you'll decide you like me enough to let me in before your neighbor comes out and pretends not to stare. At that exact moment, a door opened down the hall. Mrs. Alvarez from 4B looked out with the careful innocence of a woman who had never missed a building detail in her life. Morning, Margot. Good morning. Mrs. Alvarez's eyes moved to Sloane, then to the coffees, then back to Margot. Nice weather after the rain, she said. Very nice, Margot replied. Sloane smiled beautifully. Good morning. Mrs. Alvarez smiled back with immediate, traitorous approval. Then she disappeared. Margot stepped aside. Get in before she writes a newsletter. Sloane entered. The apartment seemed to react to her. Not physically, of course. The chairs remained chairs. The books remained books. The coffee stayed on the counter. But the air shifted around Sloane as if she carried a different temperature under her coat. She set the coffees down, removed her coat, and draped it over the back of a chair without asking. Margot noticed. Sloane noticed Margot noticing. Should I hang it up? Sloane asked. You know where the hooks are. I know. I like when you look annoyed. That must be very rewarding for you. Incredibly. Sloane hung the coat properly, then turned back into the kitchen. For a moment, she simply stood there, taking in the apartment. She had been here before. Many times. Too many, depending on the honesty of the day. But usually at night. Usually after wine or an event or a text that pretended to be casual until it was not. Usually when the city was dark and Margot could tell herself morning would make things clear. Daylight made the apartment less forgiving. It showed the framed photo of Margot's daughter on the bookshelf, the contract drafts on the desk, the running shoes by the door, the half-read novel by the window. The life Sloane visited but never quite entered. Sloane's gaze stopped on the cream card near the coffee cup. Margot saw it happen. Sloane looked at it. Then at Margot. "Celeste Rowan," she said. Margot crossed to the counter and picked up one of the coffees Sloane had brought. "You read upside down now?" "I do many things well. Humility remains unavailable, I see." Sloane ignored that. "She gave you her card." "Yes." "When?" Margot took a sip of coffee. It was annoyingly better. "Last night." "On the balcony?" Margot's hand paused halfway back to the counter. Sloane saw that too. The room sharpened. Not coldly. Hotly. Sloane's expression did not collapse into anger. That would have been easier. Instead, something bright and amused and jealous moved across her face, and it made her look almost younger for a second. Reckless. Alive. A woman who had found a locked drawer and wanted the key mostly because someone else might have touched it first. "You saw me come back," Margot said. "I saw you come back looking different." "That is not evidence." "No," Sloane said. "But it was interesting." Margot set the coffee down. "You followed me with your eyes all night." "I wasn't subtle." "You never try to be subtle with me." "I try sometimes." "You fail beautifully." Sloane smiled. Then the smile faded at the edges. "Did she kiss you?" Margot did not answer immediately. Sloane stepped closer. The distance between them narrowed to the width of the kitchen island. "No lying," Sloane said. "I didn't agree to interrogation." "You didn't answer." Margot held her gaze. "Yes," she said. Sloane went still. The apartment went quiet around them. A car passed outside. The radiator clicked once. Coffee steam moved between them and vanished. Margot expected something sharp. A joke. A challenge. A careless little wound. Instead, Sloane looked at her mouth. Slowly. As if the answer had not pushed her away but pulled her into a more dangerous kind of attention. "Did you like it?" Sloane asked. Margot's pulse changed. "Sloane. Did you?" "That is none of your business." Sloane came around the island. Margot did not move. The problem with Sloane was never that she did not understand boundaries. It was that she approached them like doors she expected to be opened if she smiled long enough. But this time, she stopped before touching Margot. Close. Not touching. Her eyes stayed on Margot's. "I hated it," Sloane said. The honesty landed hot. Margot's fingers curled against the edge of the counter. "I hated that you left the room," Sloane continued. "I hated that I knew where you'd gone. I hated that when you came back, you looked like someone had taken you seriously." Margot's breath caught. That was too accurate. Too much. Sloane's mouth tightened as if she regretted saying it and could not take it back. "I hate that she got to see you like that," Sloane said. Margot's voice was quiet. "Like what?" Sloane's gaze moved over her face. Surprised. Margot looked away first. "A mistake." Sloane's hand rose, slowly, and touched the counter beside Margot's hip. Still not her. "Look at me," Sloane said. Margot should not have. She did. Sloane looked less playful now. No smirk. No performance. Just want and jealousy, and something dangerously close to fear wearing expensive clothes. "Don't do this because someone else kissed me," Margot said. Sloane's eyes flashed. "You think I need that?" "I think you like wanting what feels almost out of reach." Sloane laughed once, softly, without humor. Then she leaned in close enough that Margot felt her breath. "You have never been out of reach for me," she said. That was the problem. Margot's body answered before her mind could reject the arrogance. Heat moved through her. Sloane saw it. Her expression changed again. "There," she whispered. Margot hated that word. Loved it. Hated that she loved it. Sloane lifted her hand and brushed her thumb along the edge of Margot's jaw. Margot turned her face away by a fraction. Not enough. Sloane followed the movement, not with pressure, but with patience. Her thumb moved under Margot's chin, lifting slightly, asking and daring at the same time. Sloane. I know. You don't. I know this, Sloane said. Then she kissed her. Not gently. Not carefully. Not like Celeste on the balcony. Sloane kissed her like the morning had been waiting for permission to catch fire. Margot's back hit the counter with a soft sound. Her hands went to Sloane's shoulders, intending, maybe, to push. Instead, her fingers closed around the soft gray sweater and pulled. Sloane made a low sound against her mouth. That was it. The last useful thought Margot had. The kiss opened fast, hungry but familiar, a door they had both walked through too many times to pretend they did not know the way. Sloane's hands slid to Margot's waist, warm through the cashmere, then around her back, drawing her in until the space between them disappeared. Margot felt the hard edge of the counter behind her, Sloane's body in front of her, the soft drag of wool under her fingers, the wild relief of wanting without having to translate it into words. Sloane knew how to kiss her. That was unfair. Deeply unfair. She knew when to press and when to wait. Knew the angle that made Margot's breath break. Knew that Margot liked being held firmly, but not trapped. Knew that if she touched the back of Margot's neck just there, Margot's knees would remember every reckless night they had survived together. Margot did not want to think about how well Sloane knew her body. So she stopped thinking. Her mouth moved under Sloane's with a hunger she had been trying to file away for months. Sloane answered instantly, one hand sliding into Margot's hair, loosening the twist until pins slipped free and clicked onto the kitchen floor. Margot heard one fall. Then another. She did not care. Sloane drew back just enough to look at her. Margot's hair had fallen around her face. Her breathing was uneven. Her hands were still clenched in Sloane's sweater. Sloane's eyes darkened. God, she said softly. I miss this. Margot's chest tightened. Not because of the words. Because of what they were not. I missed you would have been different. But Sloane kissed her again before Margot could feel that difference fully, and the thought burned away. This time Margot turned them. Sloane laughed against her mouth when her back met the opposite counter. There she is, Sloane whispered. Margot silenced her with another kiss. It was not elegant. Not the way Margot was elegant in public. Not polished, not restrained, not composed. It was alive. Sloane's hands moved over her back, sure and hungry. Margot's fingers found the hem of Sloane's sweater, just enough to feel the warmth beneath, the shift of Sloane's breath when skin met skin. Sloane's head tipped back for half a second, eyes closing, and Margot watched her like that, unguarded, wanting, beautiful enough to make poor choices look reasonable. Then Sloane pulled her close again, and Margot let herself be pulled. They moved from the kitchen without deciding to. A stumble. A breathless laugh. Sloane's hand finding Margot's wrist. Margot's coffee forgotten on the counter. The edge of the hallway wall catching Sloane's shoulder. Sloane turning Margot into it, not hard, not rough, but with the confidence of a woman who knew Margot liked resistance when it came wrapped in desire. Margot's palms flattened against the wall behind her. Sloane's mouth found her throat. Margot closed her eyes. Sloane, she said, but it did not sound like a warning now. Sloane heard that. Of course she did. Her lips curved against Margot's skin. I know, she murmured. She kissed the place just below Margot's jaw, then lower, slow enough to make Margot's fingers press harder into the wall. The apartment disappeared in pieces. The hallway, the framed photographs, the Sunday light, the ordinary world where people answered emails and bought groceries and made wise decisions. All of it thinned under Sloane's mouth, under the hand at Margot's waist, under the way Sloane's body fit against hers like a bad habit with perfect timing. Margot caught Sloane's face between her hands and brought her back up. The kiss that followed was less controlled. Sloane's breath broke first. Margot felt the sound move through her and answered with one of her own, softer but impossible to hide. Sloane stopped. Not away. Just still. Her forehead rested against Margot's. They stood there in the hallway, breathing hard, bodies close, mouths almost touching. "Tell me to leave," Sloane said. Margot opened her eyes. Sloane's were closed. The request was not theatrical, not manipulative. It sounded almost like mercy. Margot's hands were still on her face. She could have said it. Leave. She could have saved herself the familiar afterward. The silence. The way Sloane would eventually reach for her phone. The way Margot would pretend she did not notice. The way the apartment would feel too still after the door closed. She could have said it. Instead, she kissed Sloane again. Sloane responded with a sound that was almost relief. The hallway became too narrow for the heat between them. Margot moved first this time, pulling Sloane toward the living room, then stopping because Sloane caught her by the waist and kissed her again before they made it past the bookcase. They kept stopping. That was the maddening part. Every few feet, another interruption of want. A kiss against the wall. Sloane's fingers slipping under the edge of Margot's sweater, then pausing until Margot leaned into her touch. Margot's hands in Sloane's hair. Sloane laughing breathlessly when they knocked into the side table and nearly sent a stack of design magazines to the floor. "You're destroying my apartment," Margot said against her mouth. "You'll bill me. You couldn't afford me." Sloane pulled back, eyes bright. "I absolutely could. That's not the point." "No," Sloane kissed her again, smiling. "It never is with you." They reached the sofa only because Margot's legs met it, and she sat down before both of them fell. Sloane stood over her for half a second. Sunlight touched the side of her face. Her hair was mussed now, sweater pulled slightly off one shoulder, lips softened from kissing. She looked less like the woman who glided through galas and more like the woman Margot could never quite stop wanting in private. Margot looked up at her. The room held still. Sloane's expression changed. The playfulness thinned. "You know," she said, voice low, "I do care." Margot's breath caught. There it was. Door. Maybe. Maybe not. Margot did not move. Sloane swallowed. "I know you think I don't." "Sloane. I'm serious." "I know." That made Sloane flinch, just slightly. As if Margot believing her made the next part harder. Margot waited. Sloane looked down at her, and for one impossible second, the whole room seemed to offer her a chance. A simple one. Say something real. Stay in it. Let the fire become light. Let Margot not be the only one imagining a life with walls and mornings and plans. Sloane reached down and touched Margot's cheek. "I care," she said again. Margot covered Sloane's hand with her own. "How?" The question was quiet. Not demanding. Not dramatic. Just there. Sloane's lips parted. No answer came. The silence lasted 1 second. Then 2. Then Sloane leaned down and kissed her instead. And Margot let her. Because she wanted the kiss. Because the kiss was easier than the silence. Because Sloane's body knew what to say when Sloane could not. Margot pulled her down, and Sloane came willingly, knees sinking into the sofa on either side of her, hands braced against the cushions. The kiss deepened again, not playful now, not teasing. It was all heat and pressure and the desperate grace of two people who had learned each other in the dark and never quite figured out what to do in daylight. Margot's sweater loosened at one shoulder. Sloane's mouth followed the exposed line of skin there, slow and reverent enough to make Margot forget, for a few breaths, that reverence was not the same as devotion. Her hands moved over Sloane's back under the sweater, feeling the warm shift of muscle, the quickening breath, the way Sloane seemed to tremble once when Margot touched her with intention instead of reaction. That mattered. Sloane wanted her, yes. But Sloane also responded. Fully. Not cold. Not careless. Not selfish in the moment. In the moment, Sloane was generous with heat, attentive, almost unbearably present. She noticed every small change in Margot's breath, every pause, every pressure of fingers, every time Margot tried to hold back and failed. That was why it was so hard. If Sloane had been shallow, Margot could have dismissed her. If Sloane had been cruel, Margot could have left. But Sloane made her feel wanted down to the bone. Sloane made wanting feel mutual, physical, immediate, alive. Sloane made the present so bright it was easy to pretend the future did not matter. They moved again. From the sofa to the bedroom, not in one clean sweep but in pieces. Margot against the doorway, Sloane's hands in her hair. Sloane laughing low when Margot pulled her by the waistband, then losing the laugh when Margot kissed her slowly enough to make her impatient. Clothes shifted. Shoes came off somewhere in the hall. A sweater landed near the chair. The bedroom filled with pale Sunday light and the kind of silence that only happens when two people stop needing the world to make sense. There were no sharp edges then. No arguments. No definitions. Only breath and warmth and hands learning familiar paths, as if familiarity itself could become a promise if they wanted it hard enough. Sloane's mouth at Margot's shoulder. Margot's fingers pressed into Sloane's back, the sheets pulling loose beneath them. Sloane whispering Margot's name not like a game, not like a tease, but like she needed the sound to stay inside the room. Margot answered her. Not with explanations. With touch. With breath. With the truth her body gave too easily. And for a while it was enough. Afterward, the apartment was very quiet. The light had changed. Late morning had become something softer, slower. The bedroom walls warmer now. The city sounds outside had thinned. Margot lay on her side beneath the sheet, one arm folded under the pillow, hair loose across her shoulder. Sloane lay behind her, close but not holding her. That detail arrived first. Not cruelly. Not even consciously. Just space. A few inches between Sloane's body and hers. Enough to cool. Margot stared at the edge of the window where light touched the curtain. Her body felt warm, heavy, satisfied in the simplest possible way. Her chest felt oddly clear. That was worse. Sloane shifted behind her. A hand came to Margot's waist. Lazy. Warm. Familiar. You're thinking too loudly, Sloane murmured. Margot closed her eyes. Am I? Yes. Sloane's lips touched the back of her shoulder. Margot's body reacted. Of course it did. That was not the problem. You asked me to tell you to leave, Margot said. Sloane's hand stilled. Earlier, Margot added. I remember. Why? Sloane was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because I knew you wouldn't. The honesty should have made Margot angry. It did not. It made her tired in a place no sleep would touch. She turned onto her back and looked at Sloane. Sloane's face was softer after intimacy. It always was. Less armored. Her hair mussed, eyes clear, mouth still marked by everything they had done. She looked young and beautiful and almost reachable. Almost. That's not fair, Margot said. No. You know that. Yes. Then why say it? Because lying would be worse. Margot looked at the ceiling. Sloane shifted onto one elbow. The sheets slipped lower on her shoulder, and Margot's eyes betrayed her by following the movement. Sloane noticed. A faint smile touched her mouth. It nearly worked. Nearly. Margot looked back at her face. Don't. The smile faded. Sloane, Margot said quietly now. What are we doing? Sloane's expression closed by a fraction. There it was. This door. The one Sloane never liked. Do we have to do that right now? She asked. Margot breathed out a small laugh. That's an answer. No, it isn't. It is. Sloane sat up, pulling the sheet with her, one hand moving through her hair. We're good together. Yes. We have always been good together. Yes. So why does it have to become a courtroom? It doesn't. It feels like one. Margot pushed herself up against the pillows, drawing the sheet around her chest. Not from modesty. From the sudden need for some kind of structure between them. I'm not asking you to defend yourself, she said. Sloane looked at her. It feels like you are. I'm asking what this is. This, Sloane said and reached for her hand. Margot let her take it. Sloane brought Margot's knuckles to her mouth and kissed them once. It was so tender that Margot almost hated her for it. This is this, Sloane said. That used to be enough for me. The words landed heavily. Sloane's fingers tightened around hers. And now, she asked. Margot did not answer quickly. She looked at their joined hands. Sloane's thumb moved over her skin, restless even in tenderness. I don't know, Margot said. It was not the whole truth. But it was the truth she could say without making the morning cruel. Sloane looked toward the window. Her face had gone still. You met someone for 12 minutes and suddenly you don't know? Margot pulled her hand back. Don't do that. What? Make this about her because it's easier than making it about us. Sloane laughed once, sharp and soft at the same time. There is no us, right? Isn't that the point? Margot felt the sentence like a small slap, mostly because Sloane had said it first. She looked at her. Sloane looked back, and there was pain there now. Real pain. Not enough to transform anything, but enough to matter. I didn't say that, Margot said. You didn't have to. Silence spread between them. The sheets were still warm. Margot could still feel the places where Sloane had touched her. Her body still wanted to soften toward her, to close the distance, to take the fire and not ask it to become anything else. But the silence after Sloane's words had shape. It looked like all the mornings before this one. Sloane reaching for her phone. Sloane leaving after one more kiss. Sloane saying, I'll call you, and meaning it, but not meaning tomorrow at breakfast, not meaning next month, not meaning a life that could be counted on. Margot did not need a ring. She did not need a performance. She did not need someone to move in after one honest conversation. But she needed more than being wanted when the wanting was convenient. Sloane's phone buzzed on the floor near the bed. Neither of them moved. It buzzed again. Sloane closed her eyes. Margot looked at her. Answer it, she said. I don't want to. That's not the same as not answering. Sloane opened her eyes. The pain in them sharpened. For a second, Margot thought she might choose differently. Not forever. Just now. Leave the phone. Stay in the question. Say something clumsy and real. Offer one brick. One small piece of structure. A dinner next week with no disappearing afterward. A real conversation when nobody was half-dressed and defensive. Anything. Sloane reached down and picked up the phone. Margot looked away. Sloane silenced it without reading. But the damage had already happened. Not because of the phone. Because of the instinct. Sloane set it on the nightstand and moved closer again. Margot. Margot shook her head once. Don't. I didn't answer. You wanted to know who it was. That's not a crime. No, Margot said. It's not. Sloane stared at her. Then she laughed quietly, almost helplessly, and rubbed both hands over her face. I don't know how to be what you want, she said. The words came out rougher than anything she had said all morning. Margot's chest tightened. There it was. Not an excuse. Not a performance. The truth. I know, Margot said. Sloane dropped her hands and looked at her. The look on her face almost broke the whole thing open. Almost. You say that like you've already decided something, Sloane said. Margot looked down at the sheet twisted between her fingers. I haven't. You have. I haven't. But you're going to. Margot did not answer. Sloane nodded once slowly, as if confirming something to herself. Then she got out of bed. Margot watched her dress in silence. There was nothing dramatic about it. No thrown clothes. No slammed drawers. Sloane moved carefully, almost too carefully, pulling on her sweater, finding her jeans, smoothing her hair with shaking fingers she probably thought Margot did not see. Margot saw. That was part of the ache. Sloane was not heartless. She was simply not built, at least not now, for the thing Margot had begun needing. When Sloane turned back, her face was composed again. Mostly. I didn't come here to hurt you, she said. I know. I wanted to see you. I know that too. Sloane's mouth twisted. You always know just enough to make it worse. Margot almost smiled. Almost. Sloane walked to the side of the bed and leaned down. For 1 second, Margot thought she would kiss her forehead. Something gentle. Something that would be easier to survive. Instead, Sloane kissed her mouth. Slowly. Deeply. A kiss full of everything she could give when giving did not require language. Margot let herself have it. That was not wisdom. It was mercy. For both of them. When Sloane pulled away, her eyes were bright. I'll call you, she said. Margot's heart sank with the familiarity of it. Still, she nodded. Sloane seemed to hear what she had said only after it was already out. Her face changed. She almost corrected it. Almost. Then she did not. Goodbye, Sloane, Margot said. Sloane flinched at the word. Goodbye. Not see you later. Goodbye. It had edges. But Margot had made it soft enough to leave the door human. Sloane stood there for another second, as if she wanted to say something that could not find her mouth. Then she picked up her coat and left. The apartment door closed quietly. That was the worst part. No slam. No scene. Just a click. Margot sat still for a long time. The bedroom held the evidence of them. The loosened sheets. The sweater pin on the floor. The faint scent of Sloane's perfume near the pillow. The warmth leaving the room by degrees. Her body still felt alive. That almost made her laugh. How unfair, that the body could be so certain and the heart so unconvinced. She got up eventually. Not gracefully. She showered. Changed into clean clothes. Opened the bedroom window for 5 minutes despite the cold. Gathered the fallen hairpins from the hallway floor. Found one under the edge of the rug and held it in her palm, absurdly sad for no reason that deserved the name. In the kitchen, Sloane's coffee sat untouched beside the sink. Margot poured it out. Then she saw Celeste's card. Still on the counter. Still exactly where it had been. Margot did not pick it up immediately. She made fresh coffee first. Washed the French press. Answered one email. Deleted 3 others. Took the roses from the vase and threw away the bloom that had browned at the edges. Only then did she pick up the card. The paper felt heavier than it was. She stood by the window, looking down at the street. People moved through Sunday afternoon in coats and scarves, carrying groceries, walking dogs, holding paper cups, living ordinary lives full of errands and weather. Margot unlocked her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. For a moment, she saw Sloane's face again. The hallway. The sofa. The way Sloane had said, I don't know how to be what you want. Margot closed her eyes, then opened them. She typed the number from the card. No elaborate message. No explanation. No apology for the night before. Coffee? She stared at the word. It looked too simple. Maybe that was why she sent it. The reply came 8 minutes later. A no number. I wondered how long you'd wait. Margot's mouth curved despite herself. Another message appeared. Yes. Coffee. Then a third, but not somewhere with bad lighting. I have standards. Margot laughed. Alone in her kitchen, still tender from a fire that had warmed her and left her cold, she laughed. Then she typed back, so do I. Good. Tomorrow? Margot looked at the message. Tomorrow. A plan. A small one. A simple one. Still a plan. She looked around her apartment. The quiet counters, the clean cup in her hand, the open window letting in the cold city air. Then she typed, tomorrow. This time, when she set the phone down, the silence did not feel empty. It felt like a room waiting for someone to arrive. If part 2 pulled you into the fire between Margot and Sloane, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which moment hit you hardest. Sloane showing up with coffee, the heat they still couldn't resist, or Margot realizing desire alone was no longer enough. And if you'd like to support me directly, you can do it through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description. There are also extra audio scenes there for members who want a little more time with these characters. Every bit of support helps me create more stories like this for you.